So I want to begin with where we are in the new economy. We've had, history of being in the agricultural era. That was like 10,000 years ago, and lasted, a long time. We had the industrial era, the post-industrial, and now we're really into a totally different era. And I like to explain it to where if you could look at a company and its customers, and the company would be at the top, and the customer is going to get the product by distribution somehow, various channels, etc. But now we're looking at the customer in the middle of a circle, and around the customer, picture a customer's head there, and around the head is all kinds of ways to get things, and all kinds of ways, where you used to buy stuff, now you're renting things, obviously Facebook, all the social media. So the customer is really in the middle, and the kind of floating around are the channels. So I'm going to talk about, what are these things? And I like to start with the big eraser that's outside of a Seattle museum, because you're constantly changing things in this world, so the eraser plays a big part of this. Entrepreneurship started really kind of after World War II. I mean, in the late 40s and 50s, it was sort of percolating out there. And then in 1996, Babson College, which is in the Northeast in the US, started a class, first one. And they called it just a process, really how to discover kind of where you are, where you want to go, how you will get there. And I just throw this photo out of, anybody can start any kind of company. This was actually an effort to send wine bottles out with different outfits. So you never know where this is going to go. So what is an entrepreneur? It's really a person who has an idea and works to create a product or service that people will buy or use. Many of them create teams, but there's all kinds of entrepreneurs. There's some that are in small business, all kinds of small businesses. Usually in the US, it's considered 500 employees or less is a small business. Then there's home-based businesses. Entrepreneurs are doing those a lot. And that's obviously doing everything from home, selling online, etc. And then your online business is strictly everything online. And then you have, inventors. A lot of people kind of think of entrepreneurs as being inventors. They're really different in a way. An inventor will maybe get a patent, but it's not going to be commercially viable usually. I think right now there's about 1.5 million patents out there in the US. About 3,000 are commercially viable. And then we have a serial entrepreneur, people who literally start a business, either sell it or it doesn't work out, and then go on to the next business, etc. Just do it again and again. I see that a lot. I look at a lot of startup companies, and once in a while I see the same person coming back again. Then you have a lifestyle entrepreneur, and a lot of people think, well, I just want to do something that is fun for fun, and maybe I'm going to do a travel business or whatever. So, and it's just how to spend your whole time in something that, you want to do. Certainly not going to work 9 to 5. Oh dear, for some reason this stopped. Oh, okay, sorry. So for starters, entrepreneurship does not require venture capital. You don't need a university degree. You don't need a unique personality. you don't even really need an interest in business. I mean, there's many things going on out there that are sort of nonprofit for sure, government work and all that. You'll even see entrepreneurs in government work. You don't need a detailed business plan. It does require a curious mind and teamwork, collaboration, and no whining. Whining is not good. So why the explosion now? We've seen just a huge increase in schools across the country teaching entrepreneurship. And the reason is it's just easier to start a business. We have the cloud out there. You don't need to buy any servers anymore. It's easy to build a website, actually. Social media, I mean, what a way to market. You know, you need to, tap into a few influentials and then off you go. 3D printing has allowed unbelievable increase in prototyping. People who are actually building products can have one to show a potential customer instantly. Shopify allows you to sell things online. I mean, it's easy to tap into that. So all these are factors of why we're just seeing this huge influx of entrepreneurs and startup companies. So I took a look just briefly. Entrepreneurship in Canada is alive and well. And there's, about 3.5 million entrepreneurs. Of course, the definition of that is always going to be an issue, but, just for estimation purposes, about 58% have a university degree. The age group is likely to be 25 to 24, same as in the US. Working more than 70 hours a week for sure. And then close to 20% of startups, they say, fail in 1 year, and 60% in 3 years. This is actually a much better figure than the US. So the challenges we have today, we're all really familiar with all these economic disparities, infrastructure. We've got a real problem here in the US with that. Health, obviously, security, a shifting world order. We're seeing that happen right now. And last but not least, climate change. So the problems are there, but we do have more tools for entrepreneurs to get in there and make a difference. And so entrepreneurs matter to communities. Many of the businesses they start employ people, more jobs, but it really empowers you as an individual. It kind of will improve the standard of living in a lot of parts of the world. And it adds jobs, as I mentioned, and sparks innovation. So I want to talk about a mindset. And first of all, what is a mindset? And basically, there's probably different definitions, but I like to say it's underlying beliefs, assumptions, and thought processes that influence our behavior. So basically, it allows you to see opportunities where others do not. You're just going to be more aware. You're going to be more curious, and you can work on those things. They can become, a skill that just comes to you naturally. And the core belief around the mindset is our responsibility to leverage our interests, skills, and abilities to be useful to others. So I talked about the sweet spot, and this is kind of the convergence of your interests, skills, and abilities. And I know this looks like I did this on a cocktail napkin, but I kind of wanted to show it graphically. So you've got your interests, your own interests, you've got your abilities, skills that you already have, and then the needs of others. And in the middle, everything converges in this Venn diagram on the sweet spot. And that's sort of where the entrepreneurship mindset sits. And needs of others can be many things. It can be entertainment, it can be fashion, it can be hospitals, medical devices, whatever. So it's pretty broad. So I want to recommend a couple of really interesting books that highlight what it's really like to be an entrepreneur. And one of them is by Phil Knight, the founder of Nike. It's called Shoe Dog. And it's just an amazing story of his starting out with nothing, all of his trials and tribulations, etc. The next book is called You Don't Need This Book by Ben McGougle. And he is amazing in talking about how things have changed, even in looking at how you present, you go through your career. Instead of having a chronological order, we're really calling it a portfolio and, projects that you've done. And it's almost like presenting your career as an artist would, like a group of artworks, if you will. And he talks about side hustles and all of that. So he's just a tremendous, insightful guy on the world of startups. So entrepreneurs, I just wanted to kind of go over again. They take ownership of their lives. They have strong goals and they prefer action. They are mostly optimists, and they'll see a problem and then turn it into an opportunity. They're lifelong knowledge seekers. And, oh dear, why isn't, okay, sorry. And follow through. And having a humanistic outlook is really important, looking to solve problems with others, which I've mentioned. So the habits, I like to kind of look at, basically the personalities of entrepreneurs and kind of what's the basis? What are they really like? They make unusual associations and combinations. And again, it's that heightened awareness, of what's really going to work here. They're good at asking why and why not. They like to observe, scrutinize processes and products and technologies, very curious again. They are good interviewers. One of the key things you have to do when you're an entrepreneur is go out and find out what your prospects really want. What is really their problem? And it takes just sitting down and listening. And it's hard work. It's time consuming. And they are good at networking. Entrepreneurs usually know how to connect on all different levels of society, if you will. So it's just a process of thinking about things. It's not a set of content. It's not a discipline. It's a mindset, as we talked about. And the use of critical thinking is so important. Being able to really get to the heart of the issue. It's not management. And this is actually friends of mine who are making wine out on the coast in their garage, believe it or not. But they have a team. They've done this for years, and they're classic entrepreneurs. They make a small amount of wine. They don't really sell it, but it is something that they have to have teamwork. They've got to keep up with ecological sustainability and all that. So gives you an example. So the discovery skills, again, we talk a lot about just understanding, what's really going on out there, asking questions, being able to adapt and experiment, creative and critical thinking, communication and teamwork is critical. Entrepreneurs don't go it alone. I mean, they need help. A lot of them have 2 or 3 mentors, etc., and focus always. So the process looks like this. It's just never a straight line. I have a little egg down there at the start of maybe, an idea, a startup company, and then you progress and then something happens at the top and down you go. And you're kind of, digressing in a couple of areas, then something else happens and up you go. And it's just the way it is. And some people have a better time dealing with that than others, but that's really what it's like for the most part. Failure can be good. Many startup companies will go through iterations. They'll try one thing and that doesn't work and branch out in another. This is the failure rate in the United States. 65% of startups that are in large corporations, we call them intrapreneurs, 65% of those fail. 90% of those entrepreneurs that start outside of a company fail. And usually it's due to not enough critical thinking, and they get caught up in to-do lists. I just threw one out there like, well, what do I do to get more library users? You know, we all have, 20 things we need to do, but you just have to sit back and try to understand what the real issue is, or what is the real problem I'm trying to solve. And I use an hourglass as a way to look at it, as kind of rejuvenation in a will. So at the top, you're doing research, you're interviewing people, you're asking why a lot, and then you're sifting through the options in the middle, sort of like a gateway. You've tried this and that, but this seems to be the solution most people want. And then the implementation is at the bottom. However, you can turn it upside down and start over. And again, it's just a different way of looking at the ups and downs. We call them iterations. So let's talk about innovation. I just want to check my time. Oh, yeah. So innovation is, it's used so much. You hear the word a lot, and it's overused. I saw a sign the other day that said an innovative dry cleaning service, and I'm going, well, that's interesting. But you've all seen it, I'm sure, in Canada as well as here. Just in the last 5 to 10 years, you seem to see a lot of it out there. I like the definition of a significant positive change. Okay, something that's going to make an impact. So it can be a new product, a new service. For certainly in the library world, there's all kinds of different ways you can bring people to the library and offer things. Whole new way of doing things. Obviously we're online. That's a new way of thinking. Kind of the entrepreneur mindset. Just a kind of a new way of approaching things, if you will. Innovation is really squiggly. It's the result of willful and serendipitous interconnections. And they're almost like little ahas sometimes. Like you'll just be going along and then all of a sudden something will click. And that happens. It happens to all of us at different things that we're doing. But a lot of people think, oh, well, there's, startups and inventions or epiphanies. But epiphanies really are based on often many years of hard work. And you have an epiphany, but only because you've done all this other work. And serendipity is kind of the same thing. You bump into something, but you're able to connect it because you've done all the work previously. So, we look at legacy businesses, institutions, they don't take quantum leaps. Taxi drivers didn't invent Uber. Hilton had nothing to do with Airbnb, and Wells Fargo, they're not going to have any part in PayPal, they never, or Bitcoin. But it's interesting in that when they don't, a large company will buy smaller companies. They will buy startups because they don't have a culture of innovation. So they need to buy another company, and then they'll keep that kind of on the side and, get revenue from it, of course, but it never becomes a real integral part of the corporation. I don't know why this isn't. Okay, sorry. So, and sometimes in corporations and in, in the library world, in a large library. We call it the expert's dilemma. All organizations have employees who are experts. Many of you out there are certainly experts in different aspects of the library. But experts can inhibit innovation. It's the old way of doing things, and it's being a little myopic about how you're, looking at things. And so a lot of times it's easier to use metaphors. Some of us use metaphors a lot, but there's a couple that are interesting. The Army years ago brought in a group to generate some ideas, and they were looking at new uniforms and how to be better outfitted out in the field. And so they brought in somebody, and he just came in with a bunch of Picasso paintings and just talked about Picasso. And well, what came out of that was camouflage. So, just sort of like as a little nugget of some different thing they'd never thought of. The high-speed trains in Japan, in the beginning, they had somebody come in and just give them different ideas, places to go, and they ended up looking at birds, and they looked at a certain bird beak, and that became the design of the high-speed train. So that's all metaphors they're using. You all use them many times, I'm sure, in your daily life. So again, innovation, entrepreneurship, innovation, and curiosity. It's kind of a layering effect. Innovation is actually a vital ingredient of entrepreneurship. That's how kind of I look at it, is you really couldn't be an entrepreneur out there without being innovative. And being curious is a vital ingredient of innovation, of course. And both curiosity and awareness of what's around you will start you on your journey toward acquiring an entrepreneurial mindset. Some of you are already there. I'm sure there's several of you out there that go, oh, that's me. I'm already doing that, which is great. Okay, so I'm not sure why this isn't clicking. Sorry. There. So we're going to talk about creativity. I have a whole session next week on ideation, and we'll get into that more. But creativity is part of the innovation process. If you want to see how that sort of fits in there, it's really not something you think about. It's something you do. It's something that you just comes to mind. I tell my students, I teach innovation at a junior college here, and I have them do an idea journal and have them write down an idea at least once or twice a week, just something that once they're out walking or whatever, and something will pop in and to write it down. Scott Bergen is one of my favorite people out there, really spreading the education of innovation. He has many books. My favorite is The Dance of the Possible, and it's very irreverent. It's a guide to creativity, and I highly recommend it. I'm going to have several of these books in your handouts. I'll send Jocelyn a whole list of these, but Scott Bergen is one of my favorite people, and he's a tremendous speaker. You can go online and watch a couple of his videos. So this is a guy who's thinking, and remember I said a lot of the failures of startups are people get bogged down in to-do lists. They just, are panicking because they can't get this done, can't get this. And in a way, they need to stop. They need to stop and think, take some time off, etc. I don't know why this clicker isn't working, darn. Okay, this is a little guy thinking. Pandas. I went over to China several years ago, way before COVID, and I went to the panda preserves over there near Chengdu, and it was just fabulous. Here's a guy, he's still thinking. And this is, I love this. This kind of personifies awareness, looking up, A lot of people go around the world and they don't look up very often. You see a lot of things differently. And then this is collaboration. This little guy is trying to talk his friend into maybe joining him, thinking about that. And this is one of my favorite artists, a sculptor called Kaws, K-A-W-S, which you may have seen. He does huge sculptures around the world, and he's British. He's from the UK. And I like this depicting, collaboration, mentorship, helping people, get along. A lot of people think, oh, entrepreneurship, they're just out on their own. They don't need anybody. No, it's the opposite. Okay, so let me just stop sharing this. Yeah, that's kind of a lot to process about the whole other world of entrepreneurship. And Peter, I think you're monitoring the chat. If there's any questions in the chat, and of course, we'll take anything live, just raise your hand.
Thanks. Thanks for the presentation, Michele. No, there are no questions in there. Jason and I had a little back and forth. It was great. And I put the Kauffman Foundation URL in there, so if anybody wants to check that out.
Oh, good. Yes.
So I think one question I have, Michele, is that I think you made the point that you don't have to be starting a small business to be an entrepreneur. You're really talking about, the mindset to create new things versus build new businesses. I just think that's one of the takeaways that you would reemphasize that and talk a little bit about that, I think.
Exactly. And in the library world, there's lots of opportunities for being an entrepreneur. And some of you, as I say, are probably already doing this. I mean, you've got little projects on the side that you maybe brought in and shared with your network, if you will. So it's a conscious effort to just think of things differently. Think, what you're not noticing, perhaps. And it takes work. It takes just like maybe bringing a group together that you haven't had access to before and talking about library services. I'm sure you all do that already, but certainly entrepreneurship.
Something that occurs to me talking about the entrepreneur as an individual, I wonder if there is such a thing as the entrepreneurial library, which is a more organizational concept, not different, but it applies to the whole library, therefore more than one person on the staff, the entrepreneur, and that it's more of an organizational culture than it is just an individual mindset. Mm-hmm. Is that consistent with what you're talking about?
Yes, it is. And it can be, it's something that you have to. Yeah. So, I just had saw a chat pop up that was interesting. Yeah.
No, Shelley said the entrepreneurial library is called the Edmonton Public Library.
I love it.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Okay.
So anything else? Let me just make sure I'm not missing any questions.
Carla, you want to say what you just put there for everybody?
Oh, sure. I just typed badly that I never thought before that things like thinking of ways that we can do things differently as being a step along an entrepreneurial process. In my head, it was always, oh, well, we have this pressure and we have to respond to it. So let's do something differently, but not in this framework. So I have to say that my mind is blown a little bit, and I'm running through all the stuff that we've done over the last 10 years and thinking, look at us.
That was one of the points that I probably didn't make strongly enough. The disruption also as a change comes from two places. It comes from the world at us, which we have to deal with if we're going to survive and be successful. But we also have the right to create disruptions of our own. And that's really what I think Michele is talking about. Entrepreneurs intentionally create disruptions. Now, in business, they're out there in the marketplace creating a disruption, but within an organization, they can be the same thing, creating a disruption. And Sometimes they're not very popular because of that, because people are generally afraid of disruptions. But you're right, it can come from both places. And we're talking about literally, I mean, I think the charge that you and Margaret have put to us is that we're trying to create disruptions, not putting anything at risk, but literally a little bit more on the edge and creating disruptions ourselves. Michele, I think that's consistent with what you're talking about.
Yeah, it is. But, you know, there's a big disruption going on right there in Calgary. I just heard about this, listened to a podcast the other day, the artificial intelligence, AI world in poker and gambling. There's I guess it's University of Calgary or has the most advanced AI experiments and all that going on with how to play better online poker and the algorithms they're using and all. It's just state of the art. So right there in Alberta, you've got quite a disruption going.
It puts a whole industry out of business.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to get started on the second module, if you will, of our program today. And this is all about the innovation engine. So let me again share my screen. Get this up. Okay. All right. So hopefully everybody can see that. I don't know why I'm having trouble with the clicker on my laptop, but hopefully we'll move through these smoothly. So the innovation engine is a concept that Tina Seelig has come up with, and she's used it for many years, actually. She went to Stanford for her education. She has a PhD in neuroscience and teaches innovation in the engineering school there at Stanford. So she has written several books. She has great videos, and I will send you, a sampling of these. And she just started a blog that, again, is fascinating. So this is her book. This is called Ingenious, if you can see. It's, a small book. It's in paperback. Of course, it's online too, ebook. But so if you want to delve into this more, you certainly can. So she is an optimist by nature. And that really, really helps when you're in the world of innovation and entrepreneurship. I like her definition here of kind of creativity is endlessly renewable resource that we can tap into at any time. It's not some mysterious thing that just happens to you. It's as natural as breathing, and it's so necessary for leading a successful and fulfilling life. So you can hear her optimism coming through on this. So so this is the information innovation engine, and it has kind of an outside and an inside to it, and it has some parallel things that are going on, and I'll go over these with you. But that's sort of what it looks like that she's been dealing with for a while now. So the inside and the outside are two different ways of getting, building innovation and getting things broken away from doing the same old things. The inside are knowledge, imagination, and attitude. Those are the things that you control. We all can get more knowledge. We know how to do that. You're all in a library. It's pretty easy. We all have our own imaginations. They work at different rates, but they're all there. And we all have an attitude. As I say, Tina's is pretty optimistic. The outside of her engine are resources. Again, you're sitting right in one of the best in the world, a library. Habitats, and that can be anything, from your office A habitat can be outdoors, a habitat can be anywhere you are, but you're really in it yourself. You didn't make it. It's outside of you. So, and culture is something that we land into. We're born in a certain country, we live in certain places, and we all experience different cultures. So we think about the inside. Knowledge is really kind of a fuel for imagination. The more you research something, the more you peel away the layers, it really affects your imagination. And an imagination is really the catalyst for the transformation of knowledge that you have built over the years, usually, into new ideas. Again, we're all doing with the inside what we're personally controlling. And then attitude is kind of that spark that sets the whole engine in motion. Again, if you've got a positive attitude, or you've got, an attitude that's you're always wanting to find out more, that type of thing. But it's all personal. So the outside, again, are the resources. Think of all the assets in your community, in the world, really, because of online, we can go anywhere and get almost anything. And habitats change throughout the day sometimes, but it really habitats affect how you're feeling, how you're thinking. And culture are your collective beliefs and values. You all have a certain culture for sure up in Alberta, and I've got one out here in California, and Peter and I are two different places in California, but they're very different cultures, if you will. And then, so knowledge, again, fuel for your imagination. Even dreams count for knowledge. So, and I kind of went over these, just making sure we keep the inside different from the outside, so we kind of understand it. I have a short story here. It comes out of Thailand, actually, but it's kind of gives you an idea of how this all interconnects. So Lek, her name in Thailand is, I just can't pronounce it correctly. It's a really long name, but they call her Lek, so we'll just use Lek. She lives in Thailand, and she absolutely loved elephants. She grew up around that. Her culture, had elephants everywhere. But then there was lots of abuse going on. They had a lot of elephants in the domestic world and circuses and that type of thing. And they ended up with only 500 in the wild, actually, in Thailand. So she was unbelievably concerned. She went back and really studied. She had a base of knowledge there, of resources in Thailand that she could really study about the elephants. And in the 1990s, she actually founded a nature park. She got her own funding. She went and connected. Again, the connections and networking are so important for entrepreneurs. And she has 35 elephants in her park. So, again, her attitude was really motivated. She wanted to learn more about how to save these elephants. Thailand happens to have good enough resources for her to understand. And knowledge was really the toolbox for her imagination. Like, well, what can I do to help save this whole situation? And she thought of the nature park. So she created a habitat. And this habitat provided visitors an opportunity to come. So the visitors would come and visit. And then that knowledge is shared among the visitors. And the culture is slowly changing in Thailand about elephants and the need to preserve them and how you do it and all that. And there's a video about her online, and I'll send that link again with my resources afterwards. So I want to talk about let me just get a little annotation here, my spotlight. So what's interesting is, these are the outside things, the culture, the resources, and the habitat. These are the inside, the attitude, knowledge, and imagination. But look at the parallels along the top. Look at culture and attitude. One affects the other so greatly. And, depending on where you are in the world, there's the attitudes are so different due to the culture. And then look at resources down here and knowledge. One affects the other. You can be really smart about a certain topic, but only because you've got the resources to go back again and again and update yourself and all that. And then last but not least is imagination and habitat. And there's a great design firm in Palo Alto called IDEO. And I'm going to talk more about that when we do our design thinking exercise next week. I think it's next week. They have their whole space is conducive to creativity. It almost looks like a children's playground, if you will. So, they've created this habitat that they think sparks imagination, etc. So you've got that parallel going on. You've got the culture and attitude, and you've got resources and knowledge. And look at all the interconnections. I just really appreciate what she's done with sort of thinking about how complex our innovative process is and how interesting it is. I mean, there's so many ways that you can get your innovation engine going, so to speak. Okay, so any questions right now? Peter, is there anything in the chat?
No, nothing in the chat yet, Michele.
Are they all asleep? Okay,
No,
we're going to go out.
No, I don't think so. This is the problem of being too clear.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then she has a great video that there's a couple of them out there that she talks about luck and how luck can affect things, in the world of innovation, and her attitude towards luck and what's lucky and what's not. Very interesting. And then she's got a couple of other videos and that I'm definitely going to have on your list. And there's, they're like pretty short, 20 minutes or so. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and begin. Make sure we get through everything in the next 50 minutes. So this segment, we're going to talk about start with why, and I'm going to end it with an exercise in assumption storming. So Simon Sinek is actually a great speaker. He's a visionary, and he's a great optimist, an unfailing optimist, much like Tina Seelig. If you listen to his podcasts, they're always uplifting on different subjects. So he's written a book, actually several years ago, called Start with Why. And then he has other books out, but that one is very interesting to read. Again, it'll be on your list to check out later. So, and he has a video. I'm going to have you watch part of a video this morning just to get a feel for his concept about why. And then we're not going to watch the whole thing, but you certainly can finish it at your leisure. So why is a tool, really? And you're asking why, and often getting the answer brings clarity, to something that is fuzzy. Remember, I talked about squishy innovation. Sometimes it takes a lot of asking, well, why are you doing that? And then they tell you, and you have to go, well, why? You know, it's almost like a little kid goes, why? So it often makes tangible what is a little bit abstract, and it really helps set a vision to inspire you, again, for more innovation and that type of thing. So again, Simon talks about really interesting biology, if you will, and kind of how our brain works. You've always heard about the right brain and the left brain, but I think this is even more interesting, particularly about the language part. So the golden circle, again, is talking about the why as the real purpose, and he gave Apple as an example. Here's another example. This is a paper company, and this is how one paper company was selling itself, if you will, selling its product. We sell paper. We offer the highest quality product at the best possible price, lower than any of our competitors. Want to buy some? Here is another way of communicating from another paper company. And this is what they say. What good is an idea if it can't be shared? Our company was founded to help spread ideas. The more ideas that are shared, the greater the likelihood those ideas will have impact in the world. There are many ways to share ideas. One is the written word. That's where we come in. We make paper for those words. Want to buy some? Again, another example of coming from the opposite direction. One more, it's a coffee shop in Italy. It's a coffee machine manufacturer. Lots of cafes in Italy. My mind is regressing here. So this coffee company in Italy really, all they did was sell coffee machines. And they had, a lot of workshops on really, well, why are we here? What's our purpose? And so this is what they came up with. And the message starts with why. And the company is called La Marzocco. And La Marzocco is about sitting down and engaging with others over a cup of coffee. It's about bringing people together to savor life, to cultivate relationships so the lives of others are enriched. So they are obsessed with bringing people together. That is their cause. And coffee machines happen to be the business they have found that helps them advance that cause. Again, an example of going from the inside out. So getting to your why is a whole series of workshops you can do. We don't have time to do any of that today, but the book that Simon has called Find Your Why, there are really great instructions on how to do this if you want to later on in one of your library groups. But getting to your why, it takes brainstorming, it takes assumption storming, and it takes storytelling. When people get together, and like at the coffee machine company, they just told stories about people, using their machines, kind of how they found out about it, how they use it, who they share coffee with. It's just storytelling. But that gets to the nugget of what is really an emotional tie, if you will, to your audience. So, and once you understand and believe in the why, then you can articulate what it means to you. So communicating your personal passion to others is the next step. And so I kind of was thinking that your library should really inspire you and your patrons. So I took a look at libraries. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Your library acquires books and loans, acquires books and loans them out. That's kind of what and how. And your library is where I go to learn things, and that's why. But many of you have other ways of expressing this. I just sort of been throwing that out. So in finding your why, for entrepreneurs, it's critical. So you really can communicate what is singular about your company, why it exists, why are you passionate about it? So for a library team or department, it's so the team, and each team kind of has its own subculture. So the team communicate its unique contribution to the larger organization. So everybody's all on the same page. It's such a cliche, but think about it here. It really means getting to the center. So Simon has written this Find Your Why book as a guide. So I'll have that on your list, but I went through it, and I don't have time even in my teaching to use these workshops, because it takes a good 4 hours to get through the whole process. But you could break it down and use it if you want. So I'm going to talk about assumption storming and end the session with this. Again, it's similar to brainstorming. It's just dealing with assumptions and getting to kind of the real guts of what you think is happening. So, and it can jumpstart an investigation into innovation. But what is an assumption? And I know Peter has his own, his brilliant definitions on this. This is what he teaches. So, but I'm using this one. It's a belief about how we think things are, not facts or proven theories about how they actually are. And so it also, assumption storming can help kind of your library or department identify places where long-held assumptions are preventing it from taking those steps forward. So it's kind of like, sometimes it's an aha moment. You're going, oh, well, I just always thought about it that way, but let's look at it in a totally different, through a different lens. So what we're going to do this morning is, this is our last exercise, is I picked a topic. However, when you get in your breakout rooms, if you want another topic, you certainly can do that. But I thought, well, we'll all use the same one starting out. So it's trying to find more creative ways to use the lobby space in a library. And you have to think about the assumptions tied to library space. You could probably have a list of 20 from all of you out there. I just threw out some. You probably have to have a library card to enter. They're probably quiet, at least somewhat. Libraries serve people of all ages, and libraries are the only space that some can access a computer. So what I want you to do is take that topic and just start listing assumptions, and somebody can, you could just call them out when you're in the breakout room. And if you can divide them into 3 categories, or maybe just 2 is fine, but there's facts about your assumptions and there's opinions and guesses. So, and sorting out these helps you probe your own opinions. Like, well, is this really, why am I thinking in this way? Why do I have that assumption? So after sorting these into the facts, opinions, or guesses, or just use facts and opinions, then choose 3 of them, 2 or 3, to challenge. And that really is to, uncover, well, why are we thinking in this way? So the challenges will open up your thinking. And sometimes people even take the opposite. They go, okay, well, let's think of the opposite of this. So, or what if this assumption were not true? What if the opposite were true, which I just mentioned? What would I create then? So it helps you remain creative and flexible and deepens your understanding. Again, we just call it assumption storming. I really just thank you so much for your participation today. Really enjoyed it. So any questions? And Peter, if you want to have a couple of words, certainly.
Well, you know me, of course. I just like to point out what I thought, something I said yesterday is that assumptions get a very bad reputation in our evidence-based scientific society. You're not supposed to make assumptions. You're only supposed to deal with facts, which is completely impossible. And so I want to rescue assumptions as something that is necessary that we do in order to live and be in the world, but also that we always challenge them. And Michele, I want to call you out that you were making an assumption in the instructions that the library had a lobby, and the group correctly identified that. Wait a minute, that's an assumption. That's not true for everybody. So I love that. Good example. And we take those. I always like to think when someone says you're making an assumption, that's usually it's taken as a criticism, because again, we're not supposed to make assumptions. I'd like to try and think of it as a compliment. Thank you very much. Tell me what the assumption is and what I can learn about how my assumptions might be different than other people's, and yours particularly. So it's the way we get a mirror on our own and feedback on our own assumptions. So I'm doing this, Michele, as a partner and a companion, saying you were making an assumption in the instructions, and I appreciate people calling that out. And we're all good. We're all friends. We're all colleaagues. We're all after the same purpose. But to me, it was a good example.
And then the assumption. Thank you, Peter. Thanks. But the assumption storming is it's just a process. You know, it helps you really understand, you know, that you've got these 3 assumptions or 4, and how did they get there? And, you know, are they really based on fact? Do they need to be changed, et cetera, whatever. So it's, again, a way of dissecting kind of where the problem is and going in there a little deeper. Okay, any other questions? Yeah, Ben has said he likes the reframing of assumptions. Very good. Yeah, I'm just looking at the chat. Well, I had planned to end at 12:20, so here we are. And I hope you all have a great week. And I will see you back, Peter and I will see you back next Thursday. So we won't have any travel issues. We'll all be on Zoom. Okay, so thank you again, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, so here we are. 2 down, 2 to go.
Yeah, I just wanted to get some feedback from Margaret and seeing how you're doing.
Oh, I'm good, actually. I think it's a nice balance of bringing forward some new ideas to the community and then kind of giving them a break to explore them. And I'll be interested to see how we use them. I'm already thinking about how our TAL staff is going to use the why, how, what model to explore some things that we're doing.
Yes. And that book, Margaret, that Find Your Why, it's you know, it's a paperback. It's really, you might just want to run through that and put on your own workshop on it.
I already put it on hold from the library.
Oh, good.
So yeah, and I also sent a note to a couple of participants saying, as a user of your library, I sincerely hope you're going to buy some of the things on the reading list. So
yeah,